The crystal spires of Elendoria glimmered in the light of 3 moons as Princess Lyra Cthalia stood on her balcony overlooking the vast capital city. Her long silver hair caught the starlight, while her pointed ears twitched slightly at the sounds of preparation below. The royal court was in unprecedented chaos, with servants rushing to prepare for something that had never occurred in their 5,000-year history. The arrival of humans. Lyra pressed her palm against the cool railing, her shimmering blue skin reflecting constellations unknown to Earth. She had studied the reports obsessively since the announcement, yet still could not form a coherent picture of these strange beings. Humans shorter-lived than even the most fragile species in the outer rim, yet somehow they had mastered faster-than-light travel in a mere 3 centuries, what had taken elves 2 millennia. Beside her, Zephyrus, her bonded stellar dragon, shifted his massive crystalline form, his scales captured, and refracted moonlight in dazzling patterns across the palace walls. Most elven nobles would display such a magnificent creature proudly, but Lyra had requested privacy for this moment of contemplation. "My princess, the council awaits," whispered advisor Nyla from the doorway, her expression betraying concern that bordered on fear. "We should not show weakness before these primitives." Lyra turned, her violet eyes gleaming with an intensity that made the advisor step back. "These primitives, as you call them, have expanded through 17 star systems in less time than it takes an elven child to reach adulthood. We would be wise to approach with caution, not contempt." The advisor bowed low and retreated, leaving Lyra alone with her thoughts and her dragon. She reached out to stroke the warm scales along Zephyrus' neck, feeling the comforting thrum of ancient magic beneath her fingers. "The creatures called humans seek our crystals." Zephyrus rumbled in her mind, his telepathic voice like distant thunder. "What will you give them?" "Nothing they have not earned," Lyra replied silently. "They say they come in peace, yet they arrive in warships." Zephyrus twisted his serpentine neck to gaze at the stars. "They come as they are." She felt more than heard. His thoughts always prepare for the storm when skies are clear. The grand ceremonial hall of the Starlight Palace had never hosted beings from outside the Elendorian Alliance. The vaulted ceilings stretched hundreds of feet high, decorated with constellations, in precious metals and living light. The elven court, dressed in their finest silks and ceremonial armor, stood in perfect formation flanking the crystalline throne, where Queen Selene Cathalia watched with ancient eyes beside her. Empty stood the smaller throne belonging to her daughter. A hush fell over the assembly as the massive doors swung open. The royal announcer struck the crystal bell 3 times, then spoke in a voice enhanced by magic, the human delegation from Earth representing. The Interstellar Coalition 5 figures entered the hall, walking the long crystal path toward the throne. 4 wore identical blue uniforms with silver trim, while the 5th wore white. The elven courtiers whispered behind delicate hands, their enhanced senses taking in every detail of these strange visitors. Their rounded ears, their varied skin tones, their small stature, most barely reaching the shoulders of the shortest elf princess. Lyra watched from her hidden alcove above the throne room. Her ceremonial entrance would come later after the formal greetings, yet she found herself unable to look away from the humans, particularly the one in white who walked at the center. The human female, she presumed, had skin the color of the palest sand, and hair cropped short around her face in a rich brown color. Unlike the stiff posture of her companions, this human moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost elven. She stood straight but not rigid, confident but not aggressive. The announcer spoke. Again, Lieutenant Olivia Winters, chief diplomat of Earth, with her security detail. Lyra felt a strange tingling across her skin as the human called Olivia bowed before the Queen. The sensation was unusual, almost like static electricity, but somehow pleasant. She had heard rumors that humans emitted unique bioelectrical fields, but had dismissed such tales as exaggeration. Now she wondered. Queen Selene inclined her head gracefully, her voice like the chiming of crystal bells. "We welcome you to Elendoria, Lieutenant Winters. You stand in halls that have received guests for 30,000 years, yet never before have we hosted humanity." The human smiled, a warm expression that surprisingly reached her eyes. Most species found the ethereal beauty of elves intimidating, even frightening. Yet this human showed no such discomfort. Your Majesty, the honor overwhelms us. Olivia spoke, her voice clear and melodious without magical enhancement. We bring greetings from Earth and the 17 worlds of our coalition. We seek friendship and mutual prosperity between our peoples. One of the royal advisors stepped forward, his face a perfect mask of elven serenity, though Lyra could sense his disdain. And what does Earth offer Elendoria that we could possibly need? Our civilization has flourished for millennia, without outside assistance. A taller human with dark skin and tightly coiled hair stepped slightly forward, her posture subtly shifting from ceremonial to alert. Lyra recognized. The stance of a warrior ready to defend. Olivia, however, remained perfectly composed. The universe's vast advisor, and no civilization, however ancient, has discovered all its wonders. We offer new perspectives, technologies, and alliances against threats that may concern us both. The Void Horde has been sighted at the edges of both our territories. Murmurs erupted throughout the court. The Void Horde was a recent and troubling development. Swarms of insectoid ships that consumed everything in their path. No formal confirmation had connected these attacks, but if humans had encountered them too, Queen Selene raised her hand for silence. I believe it is time to introduce my daughter and heir who will be working closely with you during these negotiations. Princess Lyra Cathalia, of the Starlight Throne, and her bonded companion Zephyrus. This was her cue. Lyra stepped onto the ceremonial platform that would lower her to the throne room. Zephyrus coiled around the platform, his massive body surprisingly graceful for his size as they descended. Lyra maintained the perfect poise expected of elven royalty, though her heart beat faster than usual. Something about the coming introduction made her uncharacteristically nervous. The assembled court gasped as Zephyrus came into view, his crystalline scales shifting through colors of blue and purple and silver. Few dragons attended court functions, preferring the sacred Ares in the mountains. This display of power was deliberate, a reminder to the humans of elven might. Yet as the platform touched the ground, Lyra felt Zephyrus stiffen beside her. His massive head swung toward the human delegation, his pupils dilating in a way Lyra had never seen. She reached for his mind and found something. Unexpected fascination. The dragon moved forward before Lyra could stop him, gliding across the crystal floor toward the humans. The elven guards tensed hands, moving to weapons, but Queen Selene gestured for them to stand down. No dragon had ever attacked a guest in the sacred halls. Zephyrus lowered his massive head until he was eye level with Lieutenant Olivia Winters. The human stood her ground, showing remarkable composure as the dragon exhaled a shimmering breath that ruffled her short hair. Greet you, Star Traveler. Zephyrus projected his thoughts loud enough for all telepathically sensitive beings to hear. You carry the scent of distant worlds and ancient memories. The court froze in collective shock. Dragons rarely spoke to anyone beyond their bonded riders, especially not to off-worlders. The human security detail had moved into protective formation, but Olivia herself remained calm, her eyes meeting the dragon's gaze. Then something even more unprecedented occurred. The human smiled and spoke directly to Zephyrus, as if understanding him completely, though humans were not known to possess telepathic abilities. The memories I carry are my own, but I would be honored to share them with you. Ancient one before anyone could react to this extraordinary exchange. A deafening boom shook the entire hall. The crystal ceiling cracked as explosions ripped through the upper levels. Shards began raining down upon the assembly. In the chaos that followed, Lyra found herself thrown to the floor as something heavy pressed against her. At first she thought it was debris, until she realized Lieutenant Olivia Winters had somehow crossed 20 feet of space in an instant, and was now shielding her body with surprising strength. More explosions followed. Screams filled the air, both elven and human. The security human, the tall one with dark skin, was shouting orders in their strange language, moving with impossible speed. As she pulled what appeared to be a small weapon from her uniform, Lyra looked up into the face of the human protecting her, noticing, for the first time, the unusual amber color of her eyes that seemed to be scanning the environment with mechanical precision. How did you move so quickly? Lyra asked, her voice barely audible above the chaos. Olivia Winters looked down at her, a strange expression crossing her features before she answered, Training and good reflexes, Your Highness. But Lyra had felt it, the unnatural strength in the humans, smaller frame, the speed, that defied everything elven intelligence had reported about human capabilities. As dust and crystal fragments continued to fall around them, a terrible realization dawned on the elven princess. They had severely underestimated humanity. And she suspected that was exactly what the humans had intended all along. 3 days after the attack on the Crystal Palace, the royal wing remained in partial ruins. Scaffolding covered the damaged sections where elven craftsmages worked tirelessly to restore the ancient architecture. Princess Lyra sat alone in her private study. The lights dimmed as she stared into a floating crystal orb, her violet eyes reflecting its soft glow. The surveillance crystal showed Lieutenant Olivia Winters alone in her guest quarters. Lyra leaned forward, watching intently as the human moved through a series of what appeared to be combat exercises. Her movements were fluid, precise, and impossibly fast at times. The human seemed to blur, becoming almost invisible to even elven perception. What troubled the princess most was not just the speed but the strength. She witnessed Olivia effortlessly lifted a heavy stone table to retrieve something that had rolled beneath it, a table that would require at least 2 elven guards to move. A soft chime indicated someone approaching her. Chambers. Lyra waved her hand, dismissing the crystal image just as Advisor Nyla entered carrying scrolls and data crystals. The investigation proceeds. Your Highness, Nyla spoke, bowing low. We have confirmed the explosives were of shadow-scale design. The shadow-scale Covenant. Lyra whispered the name, sending an involuntary shiver through her slender frame. A faction of rogue dragons and their elven riders who had broken from elven society centuries ago, opposing any alliance with outside species. Their attacks had been increasing in recent years, but never had they struck so boldly at the heart of Elendoria. How many casualties? 12 elven guards, 3 court officials, and 1 human security member. Nyla reported, her face grim. The human survived, however. Their medical technology is quite remarkable. Lyra raised an eyebrow. The reports indicated the human had been nearly torn apart by the blast. No elven healer could have saved such injuries. Yes, rather extraordinary, Nyla continued. The human called Madison Carter was back on duty within hours. The Queen has requested your presence at the security briefing with the human delegation in 1 hour. After Nyla departed, Lyra reopened the crystal surveillance. She had placed monitoring crystals throughout the palace, focusing especially on the human quarters. What she saw now made her blood freeze. Madison Carter, the tall security specialist, was examining her own abdomen, where according to reports she had suffered catastrophic injuries. The human skin appeared perfectly healed, though strange metallic lines were visible beneath the surface like circuitry. Before the human pulled her uniform back down, Lyra arrived at the security briefing precisely on time, flanked by 2 elite guards. The large circular chamber was already occupied by the Queen, her advisors, the military command, and the human delegation. Lieutenant Olivia nodded respectfully to Lyra, while Madison Carter stood at rigid attention, her dark eyes constantly scanning the room. Queen Celine opened the proceedings. The attack on our sacred halls is unprecedented. We have identified the perpetrators as the Shadow-Scale Covenant. Lieutenant Winters, your security specialist, has requested permission to share human intelligence on this matter. Madison Carter stepped forward. Her uniform was impeccable, no sign that she had been gravely wounded just days before. She activated a small device in her palm, projecting a 3-dimensional map of the outer rim, focusing on a cluster of uninhabited worlds. Our reconnaissance drones detected unusual activity in this sector. 6 months ago, she began, her voice crisp and authoritative. We believe the Shadow-Scale Covenant has established bases on at least 3 worlds in the Dead Zone. They have been gathering resources and weapons. General Thorne, the elven military commander, scoffed. The Dead Zone is uninhabitable. Even dragons cannot survive the radiation storms there. Your information must be flawed. Madison looked directly at the general without blinking. Human technology allows us to operate in environments hostile to organic life. Our drones have confirmed at least 17 vessels of shadow-scale design and over 2,000 life signatures, and the elven generals exchanged skeptical glances. One spoke up with thinly veiled condescension. And what would humans know of shadow-scale ships? In response, Madison activated another holographic display, showing detailed schematics of ships that were, unmistakably of elven design but corrupted with strange modifications. These vessels were recently detected approaching Elandorian space, she explained. We tracked their movements for 3 weeks before the attack. The room fell silent as the implications, sank in human surveillance technology, had apparently detected what elven scanners had missed entirely. Lyra studied the human delegates with new curiosity. Olivia Winters remained composed, her expression neutral, yet somehow Lyra felt she was being watched. In return, Madison continued her briefing. We believe the Covenant intends further attacks. Their ultimate goal appears to be disrupting any alliance between our peoples. How convenient, General Thorne interrupted. The humans detect a threat. Only they can see, which requires us to trust them implicitly. Olivia spoke for the first time, her voice calm. We understand your skepticism, General. To demonstrate our good faith, we are prepared to share certain defensive technologies with Elandoria as a gesture of alliance. From a case beside her, Olivia removed what appeared to be a simple crystalline sphere, similar to elven technology, but with subtle differences. She placed it on the center table. This is a shield disruptor, she explained. It generates a field that temporarily neutralizes magical barriers. The elven generals laughed openly. Many species had attempted to counter elven magical defenses over millennia. None had succeeded. The barrier spells were woven into the very genetic code of the elven race, enhanced by their bond with dragons. If I may demonstrate, Olivia requested. Queen Selene nodded, her ancient eyes showing curiosity rather than dismissal. Lyra felt Zephyrus stir in her mind. The dragon had been resting in the royal eyrie, but suddenly his consciousness pressed against hers with unusual urgency. One of the royal guards stepped forward, creating a shimmering protective field around himself, the standard defense taught to all elven warriors. Madison nodded. To Olivia, who pressed her thumb against the sphere, it pulsed once with blue light. Nothing seemed to happen at first. The elven guard maintained his smug expression until General Thorne threw a ceremonial dagger directly at the barrier. Where the magical shield should have stopped, the blade it passed through, striking the guard's shoulder armor with a dull clang. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. The guard stared in disbelief at his now non-existent barrier, something that should have been impossible. The elven generals were on their feet, some reaching for weapons, until Queen Selene raised her hand commanding silence. Olivia deactivated the device. The effect is temporary, she assured them, lasting approximately 30 seconds. The technology is based on harmonic resonance, targeting the specific frequency of elven magical energy. Lyra felt cold dread settling in her stomach. No species had ever developed such technology. The implications were staggering. If humans could neutralize elven magical defenses, the foundation of their military superiority was compromised. Madison Carter spoke again, reinforcing the shocking demonstration. We share this technology as proof of our commitment to alliance. The shadow scales have something similar, though cruder. We detected its energy signature during the palace attack. Later that evening, Lyra stood in the high eyrie where Zephyrus rested, his massive crystalline form curled around a heated stone platform. The dragon had been unusually quiet since the security briefing, responding to her mental queries with only vague impressions. What troubles you, old friend? She asked, stroking his scales. The dragon shifted his enormous head until one giant eye focused on her. They smell of stardust and ancient fire. Lyra frowned. The humans, they are not what they appear to be. The dragon continued. Neither are the shadow scales. This conflict runs deeper than territory or resources. Before Lyra could question further, an alert chimed from her communication crystal advisor. Nyla appeared, her usually composed features tight with concern. Your Highness, the human Madison Carter has left their quarters and is moving through the East Wing, unauthorized. Activate the crystal. Sentinels, Lyra commanded. I will investigate personally against protocols, but driven by instinct. Lyra chose to follow the human alone, slipping through secret passages known only to the royal family. The crystal embedded in her palm guided her, tracking the human's life signature through the palace. The trail led to the ancient archives, a repository of knowledge predating even the Elven kingdom. Through a hidden observation panel, Lyra watched as Madison expertly bypassed the magical seals protecting the archive doors, something no off-worlder should have been able to accomplish. The human moved with purpose, directly to a section containing the oldest records, scrolls, and artifacts from the First Age. What could a human possibly want with ancient Elven history? Lyra wondered, her suspicion growing. When Madison removed a specific crystal tablet from its housing, Lyra decided to confront her, stepping through the hidden door. The human didn't appear startled, merely turning to face the princess. With the tablet still in hand, her expression remained neutral, but her posture shifted subtly into what Lyra recognized as a combat stance. "Your Highness," Madison acknowledged with a slight bow. "I apologize for the intrusion." Lyra stepped closer, noticing that the tablet the human held contained star charts from the earliest days of Elven space exploration. "Why are you accessing restricted archives?" Smoke rose from the eastern towers of the palace as dawn broke over Elendoria. The second shadow-scale attack had been repelled, but at great cost. 17 Elven guards had fallen, and one of the ancient archive chambers lay in ruins. Queen Selene had ordered an emergency session of the High Council with the human delegation in attendance. Princess Lyra entered the council chambers, flanked by Madison Carter. The Elven nobility whispered behind ornate fans at this unprecedented arrangement, a royal princess walking beside an off-worlder as though they were equals. Lyra ignored the murmurs, her focus entirely on the tactical situation. Zephyrus circled above the palace, his consciousness linked with hers, providing aerial surveillance. Lieutenant Olivia Winters stood beside the Queen at the great crystal table, where a holographic map displayed recent shadow-scale movements. The human looked exhausted, yet somehow maintained her composure. Her uniform was scorched in several places, evidence of her direct involvement in repelling the attack. "The High Council has agreed to form a joint defense initiative," Queen Selene announced as Lyra took her seat. "Our survival now depends on cooperation." High Counselor Vex, an ancient elf, whose silver hair reached the floor, sneered at this pronouncement. "With respect, Your Majesty, these humans know nothing of our ways. Our civilization has endured for 50,000 years, while these short-lived creatures barely maintain cohesion for a century. Their assistance is unnecessary, and their presence here has only brought destruction." Lyra watched Olivia carefully, expecting offense at these harsh words. Instead, the human smiled slightly, almost as if amused. High Counselor Vex Olivia addressed him directly, her voice respectful yet firm. "I understand your concern about our supposed short lifespans. This is a common misconception." The counselor waved a dismissive hand. "The average human lifespan is less than 100 years. Mere blink to our kind," Olivia nodded. "I turned 103 last month." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Elven intelligence reports had clearly stated human lifespans rarely exceeded 80 years. Even with advanced medicine reaching 100 was considered remarkable for their kind. "Impossible," another counselor declared. "Humans are fragile, short-lived creatures." Madison Carter stepped forward. "The information we provided to the galaxy about human physiology was deliberately incomplete," she stated. "Our genetic engineering program began over 70 years ago. The average enhanced human now lives approximately 300 years, though our oldest citizens have reached 400 with no signs of deterioration." The council erupted in outrage and disbelief. Lyra studied the humans with new eyes. If they had concealed something so fundamental, what else might they be hiding? Queen Selene raised her hand for silence. "Lieutenant Winters, you deliberately misled galactic society about your species capabilities." Olivia met the Queen's gaze without flinching. "We did, Your Majesty, as any prudent emerging species would when surrounded by ancient established powers, some of whom might view our potential as threatening." Before further discussion could unfold, alarms blared throughout the palace. A royal guard burst into the chamber, bowing hastily. "Shadowscale forces have been detected approaching the sacred temple of Astralis, High Commander. They appear to be attempting to secure the ancient portal." The sacred temple housed one of the oldest structures on Elendoria, a mysterious archway of unknown origin that predated even Elven civilization. Though dormant for millennia, the portal was guarded day and night by elite temple guardians we must deploy immediately, Lyra stated, rising from her seat. Queen Selene nodded gravely. Princess Lyra will lead our forces. Lieutenant Winters and Specialist Carter will accompany her. This is now a joint operation within the hour. Lyra found herself aboard a royal skimmer with Olivia and Madison, flying toward the sacred mountains where the temple stood. Zephyrus soared overhead, his massive wings catching the sunlight. 2 squadrons of elven warriors followed in formation, their armor gleaming. What exactly are the shadow scales? After Olivia asked as they approached the mountain range. The portals have been inactive for millennia, according to your records. Lyra frowned, considering how much to reveal. The portals are ancient technology, not of elven design. Our scholars believe they once connected various worlds throughout the galaxy, allowing instantaneous travel. We have never been able to reactivate them. Madison exchanged a glance with Olivia before speaking. The artifacts we discovered on Earth bear striking similarities to your portal structures. We believe they were built by the same civilization. Before Lyra could respond, a blast of energy struck their skimmer, sending it spinning toward the forested slopes below. Zephyrus roared in her mind, a warning of ambush. As the craft plummeted, Lyra felt Madison grab her around the waist with surprising strength. Brace yourself, the human commanded. They crashed through the forest canopy, the skimmer breaking apart around them. Somehow Madison maintained her grip on Lyra, absorbing most of the impact as they tumbled to the forest floor. When they finally came to rest, Lyra found herself largely unharmed, while Madison was already on her feet scanning their surroundings. We need to move, the human said urgently. Shadow-scale ground forces detected approaching our position. Lyra reached out mentally to Zephyrus, finding his presence still strong. He had seen their crash and was circling above, but could not land in the dense forest. Survive, my princess, he projected. I will find you. Olivia had somehow also survived the crash, appearing from the undergrowth with only minor scratches. Her uniform was torn, but she moved without any sign of injury. Lyra watched in astonishment as the human removed a small device from her belt that expanded into what appeared to be an energy weapon. Elven technology cannot function this close to the temple, Lyra warned. The ancient defenses disrupt our magical fields. Olivia nodded. Human technology operates on different principles. We should be fine. She handed Lyra a similar device. Consider this a token of trust. The 3 began moving through the dense forest toward the temple, Lyra in the lead, navigating the sacred paths known only to elven royalty. They had traveled less than a mile when Madison suddenly raised her hand, signaling a halt. 6 hostiles approaching from the north, she whispered. Her head tilted slightly as though listening to something. Beyond elven hearing, shadow-scale elves with dragon companions. How could you possibly know that? Lyra demanded. There are no sounds. Madison tapped her temple. Our sensory enhancements allow us to detect bioelectrical fields and thermal signatures, up to half a mile in optimal conditions. Before Lyra could question this further, 6 figures emerged from the forest ahead. Shadow-scale warriors, their armor black as night adorned with dragon scales. Their faces were concealed behind masks, but their elven heritage was unmistakable in their tall, slender builds. The leader raised his hand, summoning dark energy that crackled between his fingers. Well, Princess Lyra, conspiring with the enemy. His voice was distorted by his mask. The Queen will be most displeased when we bring back your head. Lyra reached for her magical defenses only to find them weakened by the temple's proximity. She raised the human weapon instead, uncertain of its operation. The shadow scales advanced their movements, unnaturally fluid, almost insect-like. What happened next occurred so quickly that Lyra could barely comprehend it. Madison Carter seemed to blur her form, becoming almost invisible as she moved. She appeared behind the first 2 shadow scales, her hands striking with precision. The warriors fell without a sound, their bodies crumpling to the forest floor. Olivia moved simultaneously, though differently. Her movements were precise, calculated. She fired the energy weapon once, striking a 3rd shadow scale. Then, to Lyra's shock, Olivia raised her free hand toward the remaining warriors. A wave of force erupted from her palm, sending them flying backward into the trees. Elementalism. Lyra gasped the rarest of elven abilities, the manipulation of fundamental forces without traditional spellcasting. A talent thought unique to elven kind and their dragon partners. The final shadow scale warrior recovered quickly, charging toward Lyra with a blade of dark energy. Madison intercepted the attack, moving faster than any elven warrior Lyra had ever seen. The human and shadow scale exchanged blows at incredible speed before Madison drove her fist directly through the warrior's chest. The shadow scale dissolved into shadowy particles. Lyra stared at the humans, her entire understanding of their species collapsing. "What are you people?" Madison wiped dark residue from her hand. "The shadow scales aren't using normal elven magic," she observed, ignoring Lyra's question. "This is something else. Something corrupted." They continued toward the temple, reaching the ancient stone structure as the twin suns began to set. The massive edifice was carved directly into the mountainside, its entrance flanked by statues of dragons. The temple guardians lay slain on the steps, their bodies arranged in a ritual pattern. Zephyrus landed beside them as they approached the temple, his massive form dwarfing even the ancient statues. The dragon lowered his head, studying the humans with ancient eyes. "The stellar dragon can transport us directly to the inner chamber," Lyra stated. "We must hurry." Madison nodded, climbing onto Zephyrus' back with practiced ease, as though she had ridden dragons before. Lyra mounted behind her. But when Olivia approached, Zephyrus swung, his massive head around, blocking her path. The human stood perfectly still as the dragon examined her, their eyes. The inner chamber of the Temple of Astralis was unlike anything Lyra had ever witnessed, despite having studied ancient texts describing it her entire life. The vast circular room stretched hundreds of feet upward toward a crystalline dome that reflected starlight in hypnotic patterns. The dormant portal stood at the center, an enormous arch carved from a black material unlike any known element in the galaxy. Its surface rippled occasionally like water, though solid to the touch. 6. Shadow Scale. Warriors lay dead around the portal, their bodies arranged in a ritual formation. Lyra dismounted from Zephyrus, approaching the scene cautiously, while Madison and Olivia secured the perimeter. They were attempting to activate it. Lyra observed, studying the runes carved into the floor around the portal. "These are blood-channeling symbols, ancient forbidden magic." Madison knelt beside one of the fallen shadow scales, examining the body with clinical precision. "Not elven," she stated after a moment. Her dark eyes narrowed as she removed the warrior's mask, revealing features that appeared elven, but with subtle wrongness. The facial structure was too angular, the skin texture resembling scales rather than flesh. Olivia activated her communication. "Device Winters to base team. We need Sophia at the temple immediately." Lyra turned to the human with suspicion. "Who is Sophia?" "Another member of our delegation." Olivia explained, "A xenoarchaeologist specializing in ancient civilizations." She remained aboard our ship during the diplomatic meetings. Within the hour, another human arrived at the temple, escorted by elven guards. Unlike Olivia and Madison, this human wore civilian clothing, sturdy, practical garments with numerous pockets. She appeared older than the others, with streaks of gray in her brown hair and lines around her eyes that suggested frequent smiling. She carried several devices and a large case. Princess Lyra, the newcomer, bowed respectfully. "Sophia Bennett Lead, xenoarchaeologist, for the Earth Interstellar Coalition. A pleasure to finally meet you despite the circumstances." Sophia immediately set to work examining the portal and the ritual markings without waiting for permission. Her efficiency and focus reminded Lyra of elven scholars. Though physically unimposing compared to Madison, the new human moved with purpose and certainty. "Remarkable." Sophia murmured, her fingers hovering over the portal's surface without touching it. "The composition matches exactly the fragments we discovered on Earth and the colonies." Sophia opened her case, removing what appeared to be ancient stone fragments, carefully wrapped in protective material. She arranged them on the temple floor. The fragments contained carvings similar to those on the portal, but in a style Lyra had never seen before. These were discovered at 17 different human settlement sites, spanning over 30 light-years. Sophia explained. The oldest date back 50,000 years according to our carbon dating, yet all show identical composition and artistic style. Lyra studied the fragments with growing interest. These appear to predate even our earliest artifacts. Sophia nodded enthusiastically, retrieving a small device from her pocket. May I scan the temple walls? She asked. The material composition might provide answers. While Sophia conducted her scans, Zephyrus remained unusually still, his enormous eyes fixed on the portal. Lyra could sense his unease through their bond. The dragon's ancient consciousness stirred with memories that seemed just beyond her reach. Olivia approached Lyra, speaking quietly while Madison maintained guard at the entrance. The shadow scales targeted this specific temple for a reason. Your Highness, we believe it may be one of the few functioning portals remaining in the galaxy. Before Lyra could respond, Sophia called out excitedly from across the chamber, waving them over to a section of wall previously hidden behind ceremonial tapestries. The human had removed the coverings, revealing an ancient mural. Look at this. Sophia pointed to the faded imagery, her voice trembling with excitement. The mural depicted a great battle scenes of warriors fighting against shadowy, tentacled creatures. What caught Lyra's attention immediately were the warriors themselves. Some were clearly elven with their characteristic height, pointed ears and lithe builds, but fighting alongside them were shorter, stockier figures, undeniably human. That is impossible, Lyra, whispered. These murals are at least 40,000 years old. According to our historians, humans had not achieved spaceflight until recently. Sophia ran her scanner over the mural. This section dates to approximately 52,000 years ago. She confirmed well before either of our species had developed interstellar travel. According to conventional history, Madison joined them, studying the mural with intense focus. They were fighting together. She observed, against something else. The images showed the enemy clearly. Creatures of darkness with multiple limbs and glowing eyes. The artistic style was primitive, yet conveyed unmistakable horror. These shadowy entities poured from what appeared to be a portal identical to the one. Standing in the chamber, Sophia continued her examination, moving to another section of wall. This is extraordinary, she exclaimed. This panel shows what appears to be genetic manipulation. The mural depicted tall, luminous beings with great wings overseeing what appeared to be early elves and humans. Groups of each species were shown beneath different colored lights, their forms changing subtly in successive images. Dragons, Lyra realized with sudden clarity. The figures with wings were ancient dragons, not as we know them today, but their ancestral form. Zephyrus rumbled in agreement, projecting images into Lyra's mind of ancient beings of pure energy who had eventually taken physical form. Her eyes widened as understanding dawned. They shaped both our species, she breathed. The dragons visited Earth and Elandoria in ancient times. They influenced our evolution. Sophia nodded eagerly, comparing readings from her scanner. The genetic markers are unmistakable. Humans and elves share a common ancestor. Approximately 100,000 years ago, our evolutionary paths diverged when the dragons arrived, taking a single species and adapting it to different worlds. It was too incredible to believe, yet the evidence stood before them. The murals continued around the chamber, telling a story of shared history and purpose. Both species fighting together against a cosmic threat shown entering reality through the portals. But why, Olivia asked, what were they preparing us for? Sophia moved to the final panel. The mural here showed the portals being sealed by dragons, elves, and humans working in concert. The elven script beneath was in its most ancient form, barely recognizable even to Lyra. Until the stars align again, Lyra translated slowly. When the void between worlds thins, they will return. Madison suddenly tensed her hand, moving to her weapon. Perimeter breach, she announced, multiple contacts approaching. A thunderous explosion shook the temple, dust and debris raining down as part of the ceiling collapsed. Lyra reached instinctively for Zephyrus, finding him already moving to shield the humans. The dragon extended his consciousness, linking with Lyra, showing her what he saw outside. Shadow-scale forces surrounded the temple, dozens of warriors accompanied by corrupted dragons smaller than Zephyrus, their scales black as night. Their minds felt wrong, somehow tainted by something ancient and malevolent. Reinforcements are inbound. Olivia reported, checking her communication device, but they won't arrive in time. Sophia worked frantically at the base of the portal. The shadow scales aren't trying to destroy the portal. She realized urgently, they're trying to activate it. These rituals, they're preparing for something to come through. Madison took up a defensive position at the chamber's entrance. 3 minutes until they breach our position. She stated calmly, I can hold them at the choke point, but not indefinitely. Lyra felt panic rising. The temple housed only the 4 of them, plus Zephyrus against what appeared to be the main shadow-scale force. Even with the humans' unexpected capabilities, they could not prevail against such numbers. Sophia suddenly gasped, drawing their attention. Look, she pointed to the portal where the black surface had begun to ripple more actively. It's activating. The shadow scales must have completed part of the ritual before we arrived. The portal hummed with increasing energy, arcs of dark lightning crackling across its surface. The ancient runes carved into its frame began to glow with sickly purple light. Zephyrus roared in alarm, projecting a single clear thought. The Void Bringers. As if in response to the dragons, fear, a tendril of darkness emerged from the portal surface, writhing in the air before them. It seemed composed of living shadow, constantly shifting yet somehow solid. A sense of ancient malevolence radiated from it, affecting them all with waves of primal terror. Lyra felt her knees weaken as childhood nightmares suddenly took physical form before her. The dragons had shared stories of these entities for millennia, warnings disguised as myths. The Void Horde was merely the vanguard of something far worse. Madison fired her weapon at the tendril. The energy, blast passing harmlessly through it. Sophia frantically consulted her devices, searching for a solution, while Olivia moved to stand beside Lyra, her presence oddly reassuring. The Royal Archives, Lyra said suddenly. The ancient texts spoke of a way to seal the portals. That was why the humans were searching there. Sophia nodded urgently. The binding requires 3 elements: the essence of a stellar dragon, elven royal blood, and human genetic resonance. Olivia finished. The dragons created our species for a purpose, to serve as living keys to seal the void. Outside the temple, the sounds of battle intensified as the first wave of shadow scales engaged with the temple defenses. Madison estimated the 3-way bond between elven princess stellar dragon and human diplomat created a surge of energy, unlike anything recorded in elven history. The temple chamber filled with blinding light as their consciousness merged, becoming something greater than its individual parts. Lyra experienced Olivia's memories in vivid flashes, seeing Earth and its many colonies through human eyes. Understanding flooded through her, explaining the true nature of humanity and why they had hidden their capabilities. For so long across the chamber, Sophia worked frantically to document the phenomenon, while Madison held off the first wave of shadow scales at the entrance. The corrupted elves pushed forward, their movements jerky and unnatural, as though controlled by something beyond themselves. Their eyes glowed with sickly purple light, matching the energy emanating from the partially activated portal. The mental connection between Lyra, Olivia, and Zephyrus strengthened with each passing moment, their shared consciousness expanding beyond the temple, beyond Elendoria itself. They glimpsed other worlds, other portals, all pulsing with the same dark energy. The true scope of the threat became clear. The shadow scales were merely puppets, their consciousness corrupted by entities from beyond normal space. The Void Bringers had been influencing events for centuries, preparing for their return. Through their merged minds, Lyra understood the truth. Humans had hidden their true capabilities not out of fear of elven power, but because they had detected traces of void influence throughout the galaxy. Their accelerated evolution, their genetic modifications, their technological advancement All had been in preparation for this moment. The dragons had shaped both species differently. Elves with their magical attunement and extended lifespans, humans with their adaptability and unprecedented neurological potential. Each species held part of the key to combating the void. More tendrils emerged from the portal, writhing through the air, seeking to attach to living hosts. Madison fired continuously at the encroaching darkness, her weapons having minimal effect. Sophia shouted readings from her instruments as the energy levels continued to climb. "We need to complete the binding ritual now." Olivia communicated through their mental link. Her thoughts carried urgency but also a calm certainty. Zephyrus projected ancient knowledge into their shared consciousness. The ritual requires sacrifice. The joining of three must become permanent. Permanent. Lyra questioned, her thoughts tinged with alarm. A new form of existence Olivia understood immediately, her mind grasping the concept faster than Lyra's. The three become one, neither fully dragon, nor elf, nor human, but something new. Before Lyra could process this revelation, the temple shook violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed as a corrupted dragon smashed through from above, its scales once silver now blackened and rotting. Its rider, a shadow scale commander, landed before them, his face twisted in a grotesque smile. "Too late, little princess," he hissed. "The convergence has begun, the masters return, the portals will open across all worlds simultaneously." The corrupted dragon lunged toward them, but Zephyrus intercepted its attack. The two massive creatures crashed together, sending shockwaves through the chamber. Madison engaged the shadow scale commander, her movements blurring as she matched his unnatural speed. Lyra, Olivia, and Sophia found themselves surrounded by shadow scale warriors who had broken through the entrance. Their situation appeared hopeless until Olivia reached into a hidden compartment in her uniform, removing a small silver device. "This was our contingency plan," Hirayasura told Lyra through their link. "If I activate this, it will release a targeted nanite swarm. It can temporarily disrupt the shadow scale consciousness. But the technology is experimental. We developed it based on ancient records." "Do it," Lyra urged, feeling another wave of darkness emerge from the portal. Olivia activated the device. A silver mist erupted around them, spreading rapidly through the chamber. The effect on the shadow scales was immediate. They froze in place. Their movements halted as the nanites interfered with the void influence controlling them. The respite would be brief, but it gave them precious moments. Sophia called out from the altar. "I understand the sequence now. The ritual doesn't just close the portal. It redirects the energy back to its source." Madison rejoined them, bleeding from multiple wounds but still standing. "The shadow scales are beginning to adapt to the nanites," she reported, her voice calm despite their dire situation. "We have minutes at most." Lyra, Olivia, and Zephyrus resumed their positions at the altar, their minds still connected. Their blood mingled on the ancient stone, glowing with increasing intensity. Sophia directed them based on the patterns she had deciphered from the temple walls. "The three of us must channel the energy," Lyra understood as the knowledge flowed between them. "The portal cannot be simply closed, it must be reversed." The ritual required perfect synchronization between their three consciousnesses, each contributing their unique essence. Zephyrus provided ancient power and cosmic awareness. Lyra contributed elven magical precision and harmony. Olivia added human adaptability and creative problem-solving. Together they formed something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of their species' strengths. As the ritual progressed, Lyra experienced Olivia's existence with growing astonishment. Humans lived with an intensity elves had never known. Each moment precious in their relatively brief lives, they loved, suffered, hoped, and dreamed with staggering passion. Their adaptability came not just from their biology but from their perspective. Each human contained multitudes shifting and growing throughout their lives in ways the longer-lived but more stable elves rarely experienced. The energy between them built to a crescendo. The altar began to float, rising into the air as gravitational forces warped around them. The portal pulsed, dark tendrils lashing out in desperation. The shadow scales broke free from the nanite, Disruption resuming their advance, Madison and Sophia formed a protective circle around the ritual, their weapons raised in a last stand. Zephyrus spread his massive wings, his scales glowing with internal fire. His consciousness expanded, enveloping both Lyra and Olivia completely. "Now we become as one," he projected. "The binding is permanent. Choose freely." Lyra hesitated only briefly, seeing through their shared bond that Olivia had already accepted this fate. With perfect synchronicity, they completed the final sequence of the ritual. Their three bloodlines fully merged, creating something new, something the ancient dragons had designed them to become. A blinding column of energy erupted from the altar, striking the portal directly. The black surface rippled violently as the energy reversed direction. The tendrils of darkness retreated, pulled back toward the portal, which began to collapse in on itself. The shadow scale forces screamed in unison as the void influence was ripped from their bodies, many falling unconscious, others staring around in confusion as their true consciousness reasserted itself. The corrupted dragon thrashed in agony as darkness poured from its body, returning to the collapsing portal. Zephyrus maintained the energy, channel his massive form beginning to change as the ritual transformed him. His scales shifted in color, becoming iridescent with new patterns forming across his body. Lyra and Olivia underwent their own transformation. Their physical forms remained separate, but their consciousness became permanently linked. A new awareness blossomed between them, neither fully elven nor human, but something unprecedented. The dragon bond, which had always been limited to mental communication, expanded, allowing them to share senses, abilities, and knowledge across any distance. The portal collapsed with a final thunderous implosion, sending a shockwave throughout the temple. The energy dispersed, leaving behind a perfectly smooth wall where the portal had stood. Ancient runes glowed briefly around its perimeter, then faded into the stone, permanently sealing the doorway. Lyra opened her eyes, finding herself still standing beside Olivia and Zephyrus. Their physical forms were unchanged, yet she could feel the difference. The bond between them had become permanent, unbreakable. Even standing apart, she could sense Olivia's thoughts and emotions as clearly as her own. Zephyrus' consciousness embraced them both, his ancient wisdom now fully accessible. To both princess and human, reports came in from across Elendoria. All shadow-scale forces had collapsed simultaneously. The corrupted dragons had been freed from void influence, their true consciousness restored. The crisis appeared to be over, though. Sophia warned that other portals still existed throughout the galaxy. Each would need to be sealed using the same ritual. 1 month later, Queen Selene presided over a historic gathering in the Crystal Palace. The High Council of Elendoria met with representatives from all 17 human worlds. The Great Hall was filled to capacity with elves, humans, and dragons, the three species coming together for the first time in 50,000 years. Lyra stood before the assembled representatives with Olivia and Zephyrus beside her. Their unique bond had become the template for a new alliance. Each species now understood their shared origin and common purpose. The dragons had engineered both races not as servants, but as partners, each with unique strengths designed to complement the other. "Human, your presence overwhelms me." Lyra addressed the assembly, not with fear, but with possibility. "Together we face a threat greater than any single species could withstand. But together, we are more than the sum of our parts." Zephyrus projected his thoughts to all assembled dragons, a gift previously shared only with their direct riders. This day was written in the